The night before it was due, I consumed a pot of coffee so strong it could wake the dead, and wrote the entire thing in a single, delirious 12-hour sprint. I handed it in, my hands shaking from caffeine and exhaustion. I got a B minus. The relief was immediate, but it was tainted. It was a relief born not of accomplishment, but of escape. I had survived, but I knew, deep down, I had lost a battle with myself. I promised I would never do that again. And of course, a month later, I was doing the exact same thing for a midterm. What I didn't know then, what I've learned since, is that my entire experience, the avoidance, the anxiety, the frantic all-nighter, was a perfect textbook example of a psychological battle happening in my brain. It wasn't a moral failing. It was a conflict between two parts of myself, the one that plans for the future and the one that lives in the present. Let's talk about what's actually happening in your brain when you procrastinate. Neuroscientists have pinpointed this internal conflict. The part of your brain that thinks about the future, that sets long-term goals and recognizes the importance of doing your taxes, is the prefrontal cortex. It's the CEO of your brain, all about logic and control. But there's another, older, more powerful part of your brain, the limbic system. This is the seat of your emotions, your impulses, and most importantly, it is intensely focused on seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. Right now, when you even think about a task that is stressful, boring, or intimidating, like that 20-page paper, your limbic system screams, threat, unpleasant, avoid. It's the same ancient circuitry that would have told you to run from a predator. And since your limbic system is more powerful and automatic than your prefrontal cortex, its vote often wins. So, you open TikTok, you watch a YouTube video, you decide it's finally time to learn the guitar. These activities provide an immediate dopamine-fueled reward. You've successfully escaped the unpleasant feeling. The problem is, you haven't solved anything. You've just borrowed a little piece from your future self at a staggering interest rate. This is why procrastination is so perfectly, miserably self-defeating. The very act of avoiding the task is designed to make you feel better right now. And it works. For a few minutes or a few hours, you feel relief. But the task doesn't go away. It looms larger. And with every passing minute, the perceived pain of starting grows. Because now you have less time, you feel more guilty, and the stakes feel even higher. That initial small wave of anxiety builds into a tidal wave of stress. A 2018 study published in the Journal of Behavioral Medicine found that students who procrastinated on their academic work initially had lower levels of stress. But as the semester progressed, their stress skyrocketed, leading to significantly more physical illnesses, like colds and flu, and worse sleep quality compared to their non-procrastinating peers. The scale of this is staggering. It's not just a few students pulling all-nighters. Research by Dr. Piers Steele, a leading authority on the science of motivation and author of the procrastination equation, suggests that a staggering 95% of people procrastinate to some degree. About 20% of the population are chronic procrastinators. That means for 1 in 5 people, procrastination is a persistent, life-altering problem that affects their careers, their finances, and their health. The economic cost is immense. One analysis estimated that procrastination costs the U.S. economy billions of dollars annually in lost productivity. Think about the hours spent not on the task, but on the elaborate dance of avoiding the task. And it's a global phenomenon. A study out of Germany followed people's tax return filing habits. They found that individuals who received their tax information early were more likely to procrastinate, often filing at the very last minute. This last-minute rush creates a huge predictable bottleneck for government services. But beyond the bureaucracy, for the individual, it often means sloppy mistakes, missed deductions, and unnecessary stress. So, if we all know it's bad for us, and it makes us miserable, Why can't we just stop? The answer lies in a cognitive trap called the present bias. Our brains are hardwired to value immediate rewards far more highly than future rewards. This is a relic of our evolutionary past, where immediate concerns, finding food, avoiding danger, were matters of life and death. In a modern context, the pleasure of watching one more episode of your favorite show is immediate and certain. The reward for working on your presentation, which is due in a week, is distant and abstract. Your brain, led by the limbic system, will almost always choose the immediate certainty. This is compounded by another cognitive distortion. We are terrible at predicting how we'll feel in the future. This is known as affective forecasting. When you decide to put off a task until tomorrow, you're imagining a version of tomorrow. You who is well rested, motivated, and ready to tackle the job with ease. But tomorrow, you is the same person as today you, just now with less time and more pressure. You've essentially created a time-traveling debt that you're forcing your future self to pay. I see this now, looking back at my university self. That night of the paper, the relief I felt wasn't just from finishing. It was from the sheer physiological release of the pressure valve. The stress hormones that had been building for weeks, cortisol and adrenaline, finally had an outlet, the frantic work. My body was in a fight or flight state, and I was finally fighting. The crash afterward was inevitable. I had trained my brain that the system worked. Avoid, then avoid, then avoid again, then panic and succeed. It's a brutal, inefficient, and unhealthy cycle. But it's a cycle that rewards the limbic system's desire to delay pain until the last possible moment. The consequences go far beyond a single bad grade or a stressful night. Chronic procrastination is correlated with serious issues. It's linked to higher levels of anxiety and depression. It damages your self-esteem because with every avoided task, you silently confirm to yourself that you are unreliable. You break promises to yourself. It strains relationships, whether with a partner you make late because you couldn't get out the door, or with a colleague who has to pick up your slack. It can lead to financial penalties from late bills, poorer health outcomes from delaying doctor's appointments, and a general feeling of being stuck in a life that you are not actively steering. So, what can we do? Understanding the machinery is the first step to dismantling it. You can't fight an enemy you don't understand. Knowing that it's a primal part of your brain seeking short-term relief allows you to stop the cycle of self-blame. The guilt is fuel for the procrastination fire. When you feel guilty, you feel bad, and your limbic system seeks to feel better, often by procrastinating more. It's a vicious cycle. The strategies then are all about tricking your limbic system. It's about making the future reward feel more immediate and the present task feel less painful. Break the mountain down into a molehill. Don't think write a 20-page paper. That's terrifying. Think write one paragraph for the next 25 minutes. That is manageable. The Pomodoro technique, where you work in focused 25-minute bursts followed by a 5-minute break, is incredibly effective because it makes the work period seem finite and the reward, the break, seem immediate. Another powerful tool is to make the cost of procrastination more immediate. Use an app that will charge you real money to a charity you hate if you don't meet your daily goal, or make a public commitment to a friend. The social pressure and the immediate potential for embarrassment can outweigh the limbic system's desire to avoid the task. But perhaps the most profound shift is to change your narrative. For years, I told myself I worked best under pressure. The data says otherwise. Studies consistently show that while procrastinators believe they perform better under pressure, the quality of their work is almost always worse than if it had been done in a structured, timely manner. The panic monster that shows up at the deadline doesn't create brilliance. It creates a barely passable product, fueled by adrenaline and devoid of the nuance and depth that comes from reflection and revision. The next time you feel that familiar urge to open a new tab, to check your phone, to suddenly decide the kitchen floor needs mopping, pause for just a moment. Acknowledge the feeling. That's your limbic system trying to protect you from discomfort. Thank it for its input, and then make a conscious choice. Set a timer for 5 minutes and tell yourself you'll just start. Just the first sentence. Just opening the spreadsheet. Often the hardest part is the transition from not working to working. Once you've started, the limbic system often quiets down. The task itself is rarely as painful as the anticipation of it. It's a daily practice, a rewiring of ancient circuitry. It's not about never feeling the urge to procrastinate again. It's about recognizing the urge for what it is, a ghost of an ancient instinct, and choosing, moment by moment, to act in the interest of the person you want to be, not just the person you are right now. That university student, drowning in coffee and regret, he wasn't weak. He was just listening to the wrong part of his brain. The goal isn't to eliminate that part, but to finally, gently, learn to put the CEO back in charge.